Great. So first, I just wanted to take a moment to say a little bit about the Political Science Students Association, which Matt and I are a part of. So this is a nonpartisan student organization on campus. We often hold events with professors and speakers of any kind, really, that have something related to do with political science and what we're studying. One of the more popular events that we hold is this event called Pizza with Professors, which unfortunately, due to COVID, at the moment we aren't able to hold events, in person with pizza, but that's how it would usually look like. So if you are interested in joining PSA in the future, this is a kind of event that you could be involved in organizing in the years ahead. For now, we have in this past year, however, held events through Zoom. So we've recently we held an event with Professor Miller from the Barnard Political Science faculty, and we also have an upcoming event on April 13th. If you guys are interested, with Professor Katrin Katz, who will be speaking to us about some of what she teaches. And yeah, I think anyone is welcome to attend, even if you're not a political science major, as long as you're interested in what we're talking about, you're welcome to attend. And if you are not on the PSSA mailing list, we did a bit of recruiting toward the beginning of the year, but if you're not currently on the mailing list and you would like to hear about more of these events as they come, please just go to columbiapssa.org/join and you can join the mailing list so that you can get our emails. And we also have social media where we update events and upcoming opportunities for political science majors. Our Instagram is Columbia PSSA and our Facebook is PSSA at Columbia. So to get into some of the subfields, as you all probably know by now, there are 4 subfields: American politics, international relations, comparative politics, and political theory. In a moment, we'll be hearing from professors representing each of the subfields and going more in depth about what it's like to study in those particular fields. Um, so as a political science major or a concentrator, you have to choose a primary and secondary subfield. Um, there are a different number of courses that are required for your primary and secondary subfields, which we'll go into in a second. And there's also the opportunity to do joint majors, which we will also speak about in a second. So as a major, you are required to take a total of 9 courses. The first 2 courses that you typically political science majors take are 2 intro courses, which could be, including which could will typically they will be 1 intro class in your primary subfield and 1 intro class in your secondary subfield. After that, you have to satisfy the requirement of 3 classes in your primary subfield, which can include the intro class, and 2 classes in your secondary subfield, which can include the intro class as well. We also have 2 seminars that are required for majors. One of them has to be in your primary subfield. And in addition to that, we also have 1 elective and 1 research methods course. The elective can be in any subfield, as noted here. For the concentrators, it's a little different, but very similar. So there are 7 total courses, similar requirements for the intro classes, but instead of 3 courses in your primary subfield, there's only 2 classes that you have to take, and 2 classes as well in your secondary subfield. And this, for concentrators, there is 2 electives that you need to take and 1 research methods course. And if you remember from the last slide, here there is no seminars that are required. And now I will pass it over to Matt to speak a little bit more about the joint majors.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew, and thanks, Professor Betts. So we have 2 interdepartmental majors in the political science department, which is really exciting if you have an interest in political science and another department. So the first I'll talk about is political science and statistics. So this is pretty much similar to concentrating in both political science and statistics, but It's actually just one joint major. So the requirements are 3 courses in your primary subfield, 1 seminar, 2 research methods courses, and then there are 2 different statistics sequences with multiple courses in them. You can find that on the political science website, which almost has everything. It's super thorough. So if you ever have a question, definitely go there first. And a stats elective. And for this particular interdepartmental major, there's no double counting courses. If you want to go on to the next one. Awesome. So the next interdepartmental major is economics and political science, which is relatively popular. There's a minimum of 17 courses you'll take, 5 core economics classes, three math classes, 2 economics electives, and then you select 2 subfields. So you'll take 3 courses in your primary, 2 courses in your secondary, and 2 political science seminars, and only up to one of your courses can be double counted. And then just some miscellaneous stuff about the major and then about the department with some really cool opportunities. So if you want to take a graduate course at one of Columbia's graduate schools, you'll need permission from the instructor who's teaching that graduate course and then the director of undergraduate studies. And then another really important aspect of signing up for any political science course is the course number key. It's available on the website, and it's very important if you're looking for a specific course to fulfill a certain requirement. So undergraduate courses are numbered 1,000 to 3,999. And it's really important. The second number of each course is each course number is super important. If, for instance, if the second number is a 2, it's an American political course. The second number is a 1, it's political theory. The second number is a 5, it's comparative politics. If it's a 6, international relations, and 7 is methodology. But that's all on the website. So if you need that, just go on poli-sci.columbia.edu. There's also a really awesome BA/MA program for seniors who can participate to start off their master's degree their senior year. And then as well, there's also the Political Science Honor Society on campus, Pi Sigma Alpha, which juniors and seniors can apply to be in. And there's a 3.6 GPA requirement to be a part of that. Andrew and I are part of that, and it's a great organization with some great people and some great work going on. And then as I'm sure Andrew or Professor or other professors will talk about, the honors thesis seminar will be completed senior year for those who want to apply. I don't know if there are any current juniors on the call right now, but the application is out now for current juniors, and it's due by March 30th, 11:59 p.m. And then this is just some general information. We have an undergraduate advising office with PhD student advisors, so they can help you with course planning, requirements, internships, research interests, post-college plans, and almost anything you could think of, really. And you can email them at poli-sci-advising@columbia.edu. And then we have the director of undergraduate studies, Professor Betts, who introduced us. You can also contact him.
And with that, we will end our presentation. But yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box, or we can actually take a moment right now if you are
with Professor Hirano, and he'll give you a brief introduction to American politics in the department.
Great, thanks. And thank you, Andrew and Matt, for a really terrific presentation. American politics is basically a subfield that focuses on the political and governmental issues in the United States. Columbia has had a long tradition of leadership in teaching and research in this area. But I thought I'd give you a sense of what American politics, the subfield, is like at Columbia. I thought I'd talk a little bit about some of the faculty who are affiliated with the subfield. So it's actually, Professor Betts, is that sharing correctly? Sorry.
Yes.
So we have a very large faculty affiliated with American politics, the American politics subfield, and the faculty have a wide range of teaching and research interests. So for most topics that you'd probably be interested in American politics, we have faculty here who are either teaching or doing research in a related area or topic. And so to give you a little bit of a sense of this, like, for example, if you were interested in public opinion, or political behavior, we have a number of faculty who are working in this area. So they're asking questions about things like, what determines public opinion? How has it changed over time? Does public opinion actually affect the behavior of politicians or even Supreme Court justices? So a lot of the faculty are trying to figure out these types of questions, the answers to these types of questions, and address them in their teaching and their research. And we have faculty like Andy Gelman and Don Green, who are really developing some of the cutting edge methodology, the methodological tools that are used to study this topic. And we also, there's Michael Ting, who's in the bottom left corner of this screen, who's done some really innovative work applying behavioral economics to the study of political behavior. Other areas that our faculty are working in, if you're interested in political parties and elections, we have a large number of faculty who are working in this area. So if you're interested in things like what determines how people vote, why do they participate in elections, what's the connection between elections and the current polarized political environment, how do political parties shape who gets represented? These are the types of things that many of these faculty are thinking about in their courses and in their research. If you're interested in state and local politics, you're interested in what's going on in state governments and what's going on in certain cities. In New York City, we have how these different levels of government actually interact with each other, how the state government interacts with city governments. We have a number of faculty who teach classes on this topic and are doing research in this topic. If you're interested in legislative politics, either in Congress or state legislatures, how they operate, how the rules of the legislature affect outcomes. Again, we offer a number of courses in this, and there are several faculty who are doing research in this, and trying to understand also why it is that certain voters, will still continue to support certain types of legislators. Another area that is there's a lot of interest these days is in media and politics, right? So we have a number of faculty here who are working on this area of media and politics. Bob Shapiro and Bridget Nakos are doing work on the role of social media and mass media and how they've affected the support for the Tea Party and Donald Trump. Yamil Velez, who's on the last row on the screen, is doing some exciting work on how political behavior can be affected by exposure to Spanish language media. I've recently been working on a project to examine how the partisanship of the media has changed since the late 19th century to the present. So they're and again, various faculty also offer courses in these topics. And I know a lot of you are also interested in judicial politics. We get and law and judicial politics. We offer several classes in this, and several faculty are working in this area. And some of our faculty teaching classes are also practitioners who have worked in various law firms. If you're interested in the presidency or the executive branch, either governors or mayors, again, there are faculty who are working in this area and teaching in this area. If you're interested in race and ethnic politics or immigration, again, there are a number of faculty whose research and teaching interests are in that area. And also in public policy, I should also mention there's a number of faculty who are also interested in public policy making. And a lot of these faculty have joint appointments with SEPA or other professional schools at Columbia. And I could go on and on about all the various interests among our American politics faculty. But in the interest of time, maybe I'll just stop there and encourage you to kind of go through the faculty web pages, so you get a sense of what are the types of things that the American Politics Group at Columbia is working on and is interested in. But I should also mention that because we have such a diverse set of interests in our faculty, this has allowed us to offer pretty much a pretty wide range of topics for our courses in American politics. And they'll be taught by faculty both with a deep interest in the area, and often many of these faculty are the leading experts on the topic, and in some cases, the leading expert in the world on the topic. And the other thing about Columbia, I think that makes this Columbia Special Place is that the faculty is also involved in a lot of research on this topic. And you'll find that in many of your courses, you'll be given works by faculty, written by faculty here at Columbia. And you'll notice that, many of your friends at other institutions are probably reading books or articles by faculty here as part of the Columbia faculty here. And one of the great things, though, is that many of these projects, these research projects, also involve undergrads, and many undergrads have become involved in these research projects that various faculty members are working on. And I did a quick survey of some of the faculty here, and there are several projects, ongoing projects now that students are engaged in, and some of them actually end up becoming collaborative work. And so I'll just end with this, noting this last piece. This is Robert Shapiro actually co-wrote this article, which appeared in a very prestigious peer-reviewed journal, Political Science Quarterly, with one undergrad while he was an undergrad. So if you look at what they describe the authors, it says this author is majoring in political science and economics and minoring in linguistics at Columbia University. So this is a student who is actually, still a student and wrote this paper with one of the faculty members here. So that's one of the things. Our faculty in American politics is very engaged and really loves working with the undergrads here. And I encourage you to take advantage of opportunities like this during your time here. But in any case, maybe now I'll turn it over to Dick, to Professor Betts.
Professor, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Thanks to Professor Hirano, and Professor Karina Mantena can tell you about political theory.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. And I've already learned so much about the department from the student presentation. So I'm going to just say a little bit about political theory. So political theory as a subfield focuses on normative and philosophic approaches to studies of central political concepts and institutions. So such as questions about how do we understand political justice? What is equality? What is political freedom? How do we understand the different forms of government? What makes a particular form of government legitimate? So political theory has a lot of different methods, but very often there's an emphasis on understanding the history of political thinking over time. And also trying to, as many of the professors who teach it, also trying to make some original contributions to thinking normatively, philosophically, morally about pressing issues in contemporary political life today. So in terms of methods, political theory can be very broad. It overlaps sometimes with intellectual history, political history. It overlaps with political analysis with our colleagues in political science. It also overlaps with political philosophy and moral issues. So it asks questions about, what is the best form of government? What is the best kind of institutions, and debates about that. As I say, one key emphasis, and you'll see that in the kind of core tracking, is thinking about and learning about the tradition of analyzing politics from ancient times to our contemporary moment. So we tend to, as a group, we tend to be interested and try to understand how important political thinkers from all societies have analyzed political life, the central institutions of political life, the central concepts and ideas, and especially those that continue to shape political life. So really looking at the origins of ideas of democracy, for example, in ancient Athens, thinking of the modern states in early modern Europe, thinking about thinkers like Hobbes and Machiavelli, who introduced concepts that we still engage and debate. And we're also interested in to track how these ideas and institutions have been understood and implemented across time, and how they've been evaluated and defended, especially in moments of crisis. So again, there are lots of courses currently looking at things like the history and future of democracy, threats to democracy. There's a course almost every year on thinking about an analysis of justice. And there's also thinking about ideologies of liberalism, socialism, again, how we can evaluate them, understand institutional forms and defend them. In terms of the courses that are studied, that are taught here, there is an introductory course to political theory. It's called Political Theory 1. It's often taught both by professors from Barnard. So we're lucky to have now 2-3 professors from Barnard that we work with, and it usually take turns. Someone from Columbia and Barnard will teach it. This can be, depending on who teaches it, the topics can vary, but they are addressing, again, enduring questions of political life. So for example, 2 versions of it taught this year focused on questions about enduring questions that all societies reflect on. What is the best form of government? What is a just society? How do people live? How do people who disagree about basic moral and ethical issues live together peaceably? How can the state and its coercive power be justified? And the other class focused on questions of equality. So what is human equality? What is political equality? What are its implications? Is freedom and equality in any sort of contradiction? And how do we understand the origins and implications of inequality, racial inequality, gender inequality, etc.? In terms of sequences, some of the core kind of classes that are taught in political theory is a sequence. There's usually a class on classical and medieval thought. And again, it usually covers the historical emergence and theoretical foundations of democracy. It usually focuses a lot on thinkers around ancient Athens, ancient Rome, and looking at, in some ways, how these societies understood equality, equal access to citizens, and thought about deliberative, decisional, and control processes and accountability as essential to democracy. Another core course is on modern political thought, usually covers the period usually from the 16th century to the 19th century, and it focuses on foundations of political order, the founding of the modern state, the first experiments in modern representative democracy. And it covers sort of 2 main traditions of thinking, the social contract traditions or contractarian theories, especially around sovereignty. And another set of thinkers, which you might call largely constitutional thinkers, who are interested in representative government. So again, a lot of figures you may have read or will read in your core civilization class in CC, from Hobbes, Locke, Montesquieu, Hume, Rousseau, Kant, Tocqueville, Marx, etc. And there is a third sequence that is a contemporary political thought that focuses mostly on the 20th century and 21st century. This is, of course, a very broad tradition, but it covers critical theorists from Weber, Arendt, Adorno onwards to the analytic tradition of John Rawls, the postmodernist tradition from Foucault onwards. And this will really be a very broad cross-section of a variety of things that many of the faculty teach are interested in. More broadly, to say a little bit more about our faculty, you're welcome to look at and see what courses they're teaching, but I'll just say a couple of the thematic interests as a faculty do teach. A lot of people teach generally on constitutionalism and constitutions. So looking at foundings of constitutions, again, especially ancient, but also modern and from the 18th century onwards, how constitutions are written, how do they survive, what makes them legitimate, and when they come into crisis. So a lot of issues around law and the founding political institutions that undergird legal institutions. A second set of topics that people are, especially contemporary, especially very current today, is thinking about populism and thinking about populism and threats to democracy today, threats to modern representative government. There's a whole set of faculty who work on human rights in theory and practice, and then also social movements, revolutionary movements, and I would say one of the things that maybe is distinctive about the Columbia faculty is it's a very international faculty. So people are from many different parts of the world, and they work on very different parts of the world. So there are courses and people who specialize in Latin American political thought, Italian political thought, European political thought. I work on Indian political thought, and I work on Gandhi and nonviolence. So it's a broad church and interested in thinking about how people think and analyze politics in very different historical circumstances and in very different societies in the world today. So I'll end there and look forward to your questions.
Thanks, Professor Mantena. And McCartan Humphreys will tell us about comparative politics and also maybe a few words about the honors seminar and process for senior theses for those of you who are looking ahead to that possibility. Are you unmuted, McCartan?
Okay, are you seeing my slides here?
Yes.
Okay, good. So first of all, a quick word on comparative politics and what it is and the types of courses we have. Comparative politics is broadly the study of domestic or internal politics of countries other than the US. So it has sort of a definition, kind of global politics, except not the US, but it actually often complements research that's been done in the US insofar as it's dealing with similar kinds of ideas and similar kinds of questions. Historically, the field has been organized along kind of two dimensions. So historically, originally was often organized around regions of study. So people specialized in the politics of Europe or the politics of Latin America or the politics of other regions. But it's also organized thematically around themes such as political behavior, institutions, or how institutions of behavior interact, these kinds of questions. And so the Intro to Comparative Politics field seminar works along both of these dimensions at the same time. And so when you take that class, it'll deal with foundational topics such as the state, order, political violence, trying to explain the distribution of key outcomes in the world that we care about, such as the distribution of inequality or welfare, or where are states strong and where are states weak, these kinds of questions. So these are questions often about multiple countries, but focus on the internal processes within those countries. And so the comparative term comes from the idea that you're learning about cases by comparing them against each other. So people typically aren't studying a single country, though that sometimes is the case, but learning about the politics of countries by comparing them. That course would also focus on questions such as the origin of democracy and dictatorship, or the sustainability of democracies and dictatorships, the collapses of democracies, the rise of democracies. And there's a large focus on understanding how institutions affect outcomes we care about, such as the accountability of governments, stability of regimes, or policies, such as policies to redistribute taxation policies, monetary policies, and so on. The sorts of courses we have, broadly, there are two sorts of courses. There are regional courses, and then there are substantive courses. So the regional courses, to get a sense of the kinds of things that are typically on offer and are on offer next year. There's Kamini Kassar teaches a fantastic course on contemporary African politics, which has a sort of looks over a long period from pre-colonial period through colonial periods to post-colonial periods, understanding questions such as the distribution of violence, economic policies, within country organization of politics around interest groups, unions, ethnic politics, and so on. John Huber will be teaching a course on European politics next year, which is touching on themes such as the European integration, or fragmentation is the theme at the moment, the particular types of politics that take place in this kind of complex federation of states that is the EU, as well as topics such as the welfare state and populism, which is a growing question in the European Union. There's a range of courses focusing on other areas, such as post-Soviet Union, some work on courses on Chinese politics, courses on Russian politics, and so on. So quite a range in which you can choose based on region. Vicky Murillo is a world expert on Latin American politics and teaches a course regularly, understanding evolution of politics in the region. In terms of substantive politics, the kinds of themes you have. So substantive politics courses take a topic and then would assess that topic across a range of regions using this kind of comparative approach. And so there are courses, for example, on political protest, courses on electoral politics and political behavior by Chiara Superti. John Marshall teaches a great course on comparative political economy, which is using kind of economic models to understand democratic processes, political behavior, accountability relations, and so on. Timothy Fry is an expert in post-Soviet, former Soviet Union politics, and has a course looking at autocracy and democracy, which will also be taught next year. So it generally makes sense to sort of balance these two broad sorts of courses to get some depth in what's happening in particular regions, but also be able to step back and take some sorts of themes and assess how they're working across regions. Okay, let me say a word about the honors program in the department. So around 10% of our students every year get nominated for departmental honors. And departmental honors has a set of requirements. They're described on the departmental website, what you need to get departmental honors. There's a GPA requirement that has to be maintained and a few other requirements in terms of courses. But the primary feature, the primary element that you need for departmental honors is the writing of an honors thesis, where an honors thesis is a really substantial piece of original research of publication quality. It's a year-long piece of writing, typically around 75 pages in length, and produced in close collaboration with a core advisor, as well as typically with in the context of a departmental seminar, where you get support from an advisor that's working with multiple theses, as well as a preceptor from among the students. The theses are done in all subfields: comparative politics, American politics, international relations, theory, and they use all kinds of methods. So people are doing original experimental work, people are doing original data collection, people are doing original qualitative work, interviews, and so on. People are doing original formal theory, writing down game theoretic models, and people are engaging in political philosophy, sometimes focused more on history of thought, and sometimes in original thinking through difficult philosophical ideas. So all is welcome. The one thing I'd say for now, this is a little bit ahead, but the one thing I'd say for now is, as you're doing courses, choose course, if you have an interest in doing this down the road, choose a set of courses that are going to give you the kind of skills that you want to be able to do this really well, no matter what your subfield is. And keep a record as you go through courses of what are great questions, questions that you'd want to invest a lot of time into trying to answer, answerable questions, and questions that you'll care about the answer to those questions. And keep a note of those as you're going through the program, and think through how you would turn those kinds of things into a fabulous dissertation. I'd be happy to take more questions on the honors process later.
Thanks, Professor Humphreys. I will represent international relations, which is really broken down for the most part into two general subject areas of international political economy and security studies, looking at processes of cooperation and conflict in both dimensions. So where comparative politics focuses on politics within countries and societies, international relations focuses on politics between states for the most part. In international political economy, the focus is on issues associated with trade and political economy and international institutions. Security studies, the focus tends to be on subjects involving war, the prevention of war, coercion, and the distribution of power. Now, the faculty we have in international relations consists both of our regular faculty and a wide range of resources among adjuncts who can teach some of our specialized subjects. In political economy, Professor Allison Carnegie and Professor Nigar Gaikwad. And Professor Gaikwad, for example, deals with globalization and governance, political economy of developing countries. In security studies, the dean of our group probably is Professor Robert Jervis, who was also at one time not long ago president of the American Political Science Association. Jack Snyder, who deals with democratization and political violence. Paige Fortna, an expert on international peacekeeping operations and terrorism. Professor Karen Yori-Millo, who deals with a number of topics in psychology and international relations and foreign policy. And myself, I deal primarily with American national security policy and military affairs and associated issues. Professor Sarah Daly works on the borderline, in a sense, between comparative politics and international relations. We have professors who are associated with the political science department, though they're not in it. For example, Thomas Christensen in SIPA, an expert on Chinese foreign policy. Ord Barnard, Kimberly Martin, who has done work on the Soviet Union, post-Soviet Union, warlords, and peacekeeping. And as I said, a wide range of other adjuncts, such as Roy Licklider, who teaches on American foreign policy, or David Spiro in political economy. In the interest of being sure that we have enough time for your questions at the end, let me stop there and ask Andrew Gelman to say a few words about methods in political science.
Okay, glad to do so. So I want to first just say that we have I'm 50% political science professor and 50% in statistics. In college, I was a physics major. I was a math and physics major, but I really didn't want to prove theorems for my whole life, and I didn't know that there was such a thing as applied mathematics. So I focused on physics, and we had to do an undergraduate thesis, and although I was a physics major, I didn't really want to hang out in the lab, so I found a political science professor to work with, and I did a political science thesis. I'm only saying this because, like, methods is at the border of everything. And so here I am, only half a political science professor. Another one of our professors who does methods is Alessandra Casella, who is 50% in economics, and she does working in game theory. Let me briefly, without naming all the faculty, let me talk about the kind of methods that gets used in political science and the kind of research that gets done in the department and the classes that are taught, and then briefly mention other departments on campus that are going to be relevant to you. So there's, in political science, there's a lot of, well, like what I do is observational research, and what the people in international relations do also is observational research, where you look at what happens. So you say, stuff that Shigeo does. So Shigeo's done research on primary elections. So you look historically and say, who's won primary elections? When do candidates get primaried? How close are the primary elections? Who are the winners? Who are the losers? What are the effects in politics? Obviously, in international relations, people study war and peace. Sharon O'Halloran studies political economy, so international trade and that sort of thing. We have faculty like Jeff Lax who study judicial politics. In these settings, the methods are methods of data analysis. So typically trying to understand what happened and what causes what. Then another area of political science is survey research, and Bob Shapiro works on that, public opinion research. I do a little bit of work on that too. Some of our scholars who study international politics, Daniel Korstange and others work on that too. Survey research, you collect your own data, or maybe you analyze data that were collected by others. And then there's experimental research, like Don Green and McCartin Humphreys do, where Don actually works with political campaigns and they design experiments to try to get out the vote. And McCartin goes to all over the world. He and his research teams go and have people play games and observe their behaviors and alter and alter the inputs and see how they behave to try to understand how people think. And that's on the border of economics as well. Finally, the other area of methods that's super important is theoretical. On the theoretical end, game theory and models for how people, some of it's pure math without data, and usually there's work on the border. So Mike Ting works in game theory, and John Huber and John Marshall and a bunch of our faculty. I think I've forgotten a couple people, but it wasn't my goal to mention all the people, but just the different research areas. We offer courses in all of these. So we have methods classes at the undergraduate level and at the graduate level, and sometimes undergraduates do sometimes take the graduate classes. There are also classes in the statistics department. In statistics, we offer probability and theoretical statistics. We also offer applied statistics, but you probably wouldn't take that in the stat departments, so you can take that in the political science department. We have some courses in things like machine learning, people sometimes want to take. There are also researchers in other departments. The two departments, from my perspective, that are neighbors of political science are economics and sociology, which are both very similar to political science. And we have faculty who teach classes in both those departments with methods related work. They also have seminar series. You can go to the seminars and see what they do.
Thank you, Andrew. We have 10 or 15 minutes